I have a question for you, friends. If you knew that you would be successful in something, would you do that? To rephrase the question, is there anything that you would like to do now? A dream, an aspiration, a goal, maybe a hope, but you're frightened to try it because you might not be successful. You know, it's amazing how this apprehension of not being successful holds us back from true growth. I ask you to imagine two women, one that had children, but was not perfectly satisfied with the result. So their adult children and this perhaps 80-year-old lady or so looks back at her life and with a touch of perhaps sadness or bitterness says, you know, I could have done a better job, or my children could have turned out better. But contrast that with another 80-year-old woman who looks back at her life and says, you know, it's a shame I never had any children. And if you would have asked her some many years before why did she not have children, she would have said, I choose not to have children because I don't think I will be so successful. So whose regret do you think would be keener or deeper? The one that tried but was not overly successful, or the one that never even tried? Well, whatever your conclusion will be, I think you could apply it in your own life. How many of us have held ourselves back from coming to a synagogue or even being exposed to Jewish thought because we were frightened maybe we wouldn't do it right, or maybe, we can't do it 100%. So the fear of failure, of not being successfully Jewish or successfully religious or observant, has often stopped us. Wouldn't it have been better to have been exposed and tried? The result is up to God. A powerful story I'll share with you about a family. Of course, the names are made up. The Silverstein family. They have 3 sons and a daughter. And we would call, though I don't like using labels, just for today, I would call them maybe modern Orthodox. Essentially, they believe very firmly that one could be a successful cosmopolitan business person, partake of the pleasures and the knowledge of secularism, and at the same time, without at all impacting the dedication to Torah and mitzvahs. So, Mr. Silverstein, what he does is he sends his children to a day school, and they're very successful. Of his 4 children, 3 of them. And one of them, we'll call him Baruch, but he chooses to be called Bob. Bob, in his high school, decided that observance was not for him. And he began to drift away, first slowly, and then not as slowly. You could understand the fights that went on, and the arguments, and the heartache of a family seeing one of their children drifting away from the observance. And again, he was very intelligent. The wife was very intelligent. They tried the carrot, the stick. They tried acceptance. They tried analysis. And ultimately, they came to the conclusion that Baruch is a wonderful boy. And they're proud of him as a son. And the family interacted wonderfully with one another. However, Baruch had made a decision that he did not want to be observant. There was nothing more they could do other than pray that one day he would reconsider his decision. Well, let's fast forward. Many years pass. Baruch, or Bob, is married, and the family meets quite often. And whenever they meet, Bob wears a yarmulke, makes the blessing, respects the tradition, enjoys his dad, enjoys his mom. He's a wonderful uncle, and so on. But as soon as Bob comes home to his wife, the yarmulke goes off, and the irreligious way of living is reinstated. The father for years had come to the word acceptance. I accept you, Bob. And Bob, though knowing that his father was deep down, deeply hurt, sort of consoled himself with, look, Dad knows I love him, Dad knows I care about the family, and Dad knows that whenever I come home, I actually act the way he would want me to act. Well, time passes, Bob's father has a massive heart attack, and they cannot really save him. He's very, very weak, and all three boys show up at the hospital bed. And the father looks at the oldest and says, come, I have something I'd like you to promise me. And he asked, I'm not sure what it was, perhaps that he should continue to maintain the synagogue that the father had gone to, and the boy promised. And then the second one was given another task, which of course, at this very emotional moment, he swore, Dad, don't worry, I'll take care of it. But then Dad calls Bob, who's crying together with his brothers, wearing the yarmulke. Dad, what is it? And the father looks at Bob, he says, I have something for you I'd like you to do, but I know it's going to be very difficult. And Bob says, Dad, for you I would do anything. And the father says, no, I know it's very, very difficult. Promise. He said, Father, I swear. What do you want me to do? Now Bob was probably thinking that his father would want him to say the Kaddish. So even though he did not go to the synagogue on a daily basis, he would do that for his father. But he was shocked. After promising to fulfill his father's last will, the father says, swear to me, Bob, you will not say Kaddish after me until you become a Shomer Shabbos, someone that observes the Shabbos. Being that he had promised to do that, he had no choice but to say, okay. But he was still reeling. My father doesn't want me to say the Kaddish? What kind of a request is that? Well, the father passes on. There's a very emotional and a heart-wrenching funeral, and then starts 7 days of mourning. Well, all of the three brothers and their sister and the mother are in the house. It's a very traditional way of marking the event. There are services 3 times a day, constantly people coming to console the mourner. Of course, Bob is wearing his yarmulke, saying the prayers, eating kosher. But every time there's a prayer service, his heart is crushed, because 2 of the brothers say the Kaddish, and Bob does not, because he's not a true Torah observant Jew. And he had sworn to his father that he would not say the Kaddish until he actually came back to the traditions. Of course, you could understand how discomforted he was. Everyone that was visiting was thinking, how come Bob's not saying the Kaddish? Is he rebelling? Is he not doing what he should be doing? And of course, Bob couldn't tell them, and it was the worst time of his life. Not only that was he mourning his father, but he had no expression, no way to convey his deep feelings for his father, to show his father's respect, because he couldn't say the Kaddish. Well, after the Shiva, the 7 days were over, the family, each one goes on his way. Bob comes home, and his first initial thought is, I have to find the local Orthodox synagogue so I could find a place where I could say the Kaddish. But he goes to the synagogue, and he puts on the tefillin, which he's awkward, because he doesn't put it on every day. And people say, why are you coming? And he says, I'm coming because my dad passed away. When it comes to say the mourner's Kaddish, they look at him, and he shakes his head. I won't say it. They did not know why he wouldn't say it. They looked at him strangely. And every time he walked into the synagogue, he was broken. I want to say the Kaddish. Why did my father do this to me? Not going to the synagogue was worse. This continued for maybe 3.5 weeks. One day, Bob's wife comes home, finds her husband on the couch. He lost it. He was just crying. She sits next to him, and she says, what is it? And he just sobs. I can't take it anymore. I just can't take it anymore. It's tearing me apart. What? Why can't I say the Kaddish? Why can't I show my respect for the father that I loved? Why can't I say that memorial prayer? I just can't take it anymore. She, being the sympathetic and wonderful woman that she was, she had heard about this. She said, Bob, this week I'm lighting the candles. This is our first week of keeping Shabbos. He looked at his wife. That's a tremendous sacrifice from her part. I mean, no cooking and no baking and no laundry and no driving. We're doing it for you, for your dad. 2-3 weeks passed. They kept the Shabbos, and he went to the synagogue and said the Kaddish. Now, I think it's a very powerful story for many reasons, not only the psychology behind it, but it seems to me, deep down, every single Jew wants to say a Kaddish. Every Jew wants to show respect and honor to the religion. Every Jew truly loves and respects where he comes from. So why don't we? I think we're frightened. I think we're scared. I think if we put on tefillin once, we're going to say to ourselves, I'm not ready to do this every day, so I don't want to do it even once. I think that people might be thinking, I can't keep the Sabbath because if I enjoy it, why don't I do it next week? So what do? They don't do anything. But the lack of doing is going to really tear them apart. So friends, listen to your soul. Ask yourself, is it because you're doing too much Judaism? Or perhaps is it because you're not allowing the full expression of Judaism? The fear of failure should never stop us. Shalom.